And if you think about it, it takes a little bit of confidence and courage to make that decision when you can't necessarily see how it's going to happen. You don't yet know how. That's confidence. What if there are things we never had the opportunity to learn? We've all been to school or training, but there are things they never taught us that actually make a powerful difference in life. I'm here to share with you all the pieces you've been missing: mindset, health, success, and more, and we'll all learn together from guests along the way. We may not have learned it the traditional way, but oh my goodness, let's keep learning how to do things differently. OMG, hello, my friends. I am excited to be here with you this week because one of the things that has changed the way I reason through goals and the way I move forward, whether it's in my job, in my business, in something I want to learn or do, that I really never learned in school or in a classroom environment and has made such a huge difference, is learning how to make decisions in a powerful way. So let's dive into this today, because I hope that this can be as powerful, or at the very least as thought-provoking for you as it has been for me. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today originally comes from my learning with Bob Proctor and with my success coach, Karen Mullins. And what he said is that the most important mental move that we can make to propel ourselves to success is to make decisions, and not only to make them, but to truly gut deep make them with what we know now and stick to it. So if you're anything like me, what I used to do and still sometimes do before I catch myself is I used to only make a decision about something when I had polled or surveyed everyone. And this reminds me of my conversation with Jen Liss when we were talking about using fun to overcome fear and doubt. We talked about the fact that when we're doing something in life, we often ask our friends, and sometimes we might subconsciously choose to ask the ones that we know are going to dissuade us from what we're thinking of doing. And sometimes we might do the opposite. Sometimes we subconsciously choose to ask the people that we know will encourage us and tell us, yes, absolutely do that. So it's almost like we're making the case for something subconsciously by who we ask when we poll and survey our friends and people we know. So that's something to be aware of, because what I have always liked to do, because I'm a very analytical thinker, I like to have a lot of points of data. So I like to ask around, what do you think about this? 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 And then I just take that and I piece through it. Now, the one thing in my favor is that I don't always listen to what everyone says. I take it in as data, and then I make my own decision. I give myself all those pieces of information, and then I make my own decision. And so if we do that, that's a little bit more in the right direction. We're not necessarily being influenced by those other people's opinion if we're just taking it in. In fact, I recently made a bit of a switch on how I describe this podcast, and I did survey you, my podcast listeners. If you're on the email list, I surveyed you. If you're not on the email list, make sure you get on the email list. And I took that into account. The reality is, though, I am getting better at this decision thing, and I really may have already known. I'm pretty sure I already knew what I was going to do. I just wanted to see how it would go over. And in that case, it had to do with whether you're actually going to care about what I'm saying when I describe this podcast. So it's relevant to know whether it resonates with people. All right, that's a long-winded story to tell you that the way that we want to make decisions, the powerful way to make decisions, is to decide now with what we have as far as information and knowledge, and without being influenced by the opinions of others. And there's many, many, many reasons for doing this early decision without being influenced by by the opinions of others. So let's talk through some of that. First of all, we've talked on a number of different episodes about how our thoughts create our emotions, our emotional vibration, and that affects what actions we take, which of course creates our results. So making a decision brings order to your mind. It gives us a direction for our thoughts and for our focus. And that's going to be reflected in our results. When we have ambivalence about what we want, we're kind of sitting on the fence and we're back and we're forth and we're back and we're forth. A couple of things can happen. It can be a little bit depressing to just kind of sit there going back and forth and back and forth. It can be frustrating. And for sure, it can mean that we really stop taking any kind of productive action towards this goal or decision that we were thinking about making, but we never really made because we weren't sure. We had some conflict about it and we sat on the fence. If we can make a decision, we can make a gut deep decision, it gives us direction. It gives us a way to think, and it avoids all this back and forth that really emotionally is hard. It seems like maybe it would be a good idea to wait on this decision sometimes to get more information, but that internal back and forth is hard and it does have emotional effects on us. So decide right where you are with whatever you've got. That's one of the things that Bob Proctor would always say, and I love that phrase. Decide right where you are with whatever you've got. And he always gave an example of President Kennedy wanting to be able to put a man on the moon. And he asked the scientist Wernher von Braun, what will it take for us to be able to put a man on the moon? And the answer was the will to do it, meaning decide we're going to do it and then we'll figure out how to do it. And that's the perfect way to describe this powerful decision-making idea. The objective is accomplished in our minds the second we really truly gut deep decide. And then it's just a matter of time for the actions to happen where that objective actually comes to life and we can see it in our physical world. So decide right where you are with whatever you've got, and then you will find the people, the money, the ideas, the resources, the time that you need once you make the decision. And I thought this was kind of interesting because sometimes we hold ourselves back because we say, well, we don't have enough time, enough money, enough friends who know enough things or whatever. Because this could be so many decisions in life, right? It could be about getting healthy. It could be about going for a promotion or changing jobs or starting a new business or starting a new sport or heading a committee. It could be about anything. We tell ourselves, well, we don't have this and we don't have that. Think about it this way. Until you decide that you're going to do that, you don't need those things. I'm just going to let that sink in for a second. If I haven't decided that we are going to do whatever it is, then we don't need those resources, the money, the people, the ideas, the time. We don't need them. Once we decide this is what I'm doing, now we need the money, the people, the resources, the ideas, and we're going to find them. It's like flipping, it's chicken and egg kind of, isn't it? The chicken and the egg, it's flipping the order on its head. You didn't need those before you made the decision. So the fact that you didn't have them was not a problem. If you make the decision, you'll find them. Fascinating. Okay, so how do we develop the ability to make decisions like this? It seems very fly by the seat of your pants in a way, I think, or that's what I thought when I was first learning this. I just can make a decision about whatever I want and then I'll find a way. Well, to be honest, when I started this podcast, I thought about it for a couple of weeks. I kind of had a hit over the head moment where I realized the fact that I love teaching and training. I've learned so much as I've started my own business. I've had a training career and I've become a mindset coach. I wanted to share all those things with people. I love to speak. I didn't necessarily want to be traveling all the time and creating a major conference speaker identity, although I would love to occasionally do that. I didn't want to do that all the time. So what was the solution? Podcast. That's how I can share all these bits of information that we don't learn in school. So I thought about it for a little while and I kind of chewed on the idea. And I did, as I was talking about with Jen Liss, I did ask some people what they thought. Did I subconsciously ask people who would support me? Maybe, because I was making that decision. And it was only a few weeks of even having the idea when I said, yep, I'm going for it. Let me learn how. And then I went about learning how. And so had you asked asked me a few weeks prior, are you ready to do a podcast? I would have said, I have no idea. How would I do it? What would I use? How does it work? What's the software? I have no idea. What does it mean? Where would it go? I knew nothing, zero. I knew how to listen to a podcast. That's all I knew. But once I decided, then I found a course. I took an online course. I learned how to do it. I found the software. I made a plan. I found guests. I found ways to meet guests. I didn't know any of that beforehand. I decided, and then it all came because I was figuring it out. Such a powerful thing. So how do we develop this ability to make a decision now with what we know and not influenced by others' opinions? Well, it really all comes down, as so many things do, it really all comes down to our self-image, self-esteem, self-trust, self-confidence. Whatever word you want to use, we have got to be confident enough to decide what we want and what we are going to do. It's not just want, it's I am going to do this. Start a podcast, get a promotion, get a new job, head the committee, whatever. I am going to do this, period. And if you think about it, it takes a little bit of confidence and courage to make that decision when you can't necessarily see how it's going to happen. You don't yet know how. That's confidence. A couple of things are going on behind the scenes there. We need to not be afraid of making a mistake. We need to trust ourselves that if something doesn't go the way we think, we'll learn from it and we'll keep going. A quote I always liked from Bob Proctor is, "The fear of making a decision is often the result of fearing to make a mistake." And the truth is, the fear of mistakes has a greater impact on you than making the mistakes. So worrying about fearing the mistakes is having a bigger impact than actually just making the mistakes. So that means if we can develop enough confidence to say, I don't know how I'll get there. I might make a mistake. Things might go wrong. People might think I'm a nut or wonder how I ever think I'm going to do that. It doesn't matter. I believe I can. This is what I'm going to do. I decide now. Every single one of us can do that. It's developing our self-image to believe that we can. Okay, so let's go a little bit further into this so that maybe you believe me a little bit more that this actually will work. To make a decision right now with what you know, not worrying about what anybody else thinks. So once we've made this decision, how do we make it happen? Well, the key is that Earl Nightingale said, we become what we think about most of the time. And that's the strangest secret. So the key is to hold on to the vision of this thing that you decided about actually happening, being done, achieving whatever it is you decided to do. Hold that vision. Because, and if you think about our self-talk episode, we talked about this in episode 19, the brain works to find evidence to support what the brain has glommed onto as a belief. So if I've decided this, I can see it, I'm holding that vision, then my brain is going to work to find me evidence that I can do it, ideas that help me do it, resources that I need. That is how our brain works. So hold the vision. And that's why lots and lots and lots of authors and teachers say we become what we think about. It's how the brain works. It's brain science, really, that sits behind that. So what I mean by hold the vision is this. Build yourself a mental picture of exactly how you want this decision to result. So maybe it's a new job. Maybe it's how you want your life to be, how you want your days to be, what you want something to look like. Maybe it's some sort of leadership position. Again, whatever it is that you're deciding about, how do you want it to be? Make yourself a mental picture of how we would like that thing we're deciding on to be. What does it look like? What are your days like? What does it feel like? What do people say to you about it? Whatever you want to have as a part of your vision, and make sure that what you're seeing when you're doing that creates some excitement or some enthusiasm in you. Adding that emotion, excitement or enthusiasm, it doesn't matter. I say both simply because if this is something related to work, I can see our brains going, am I really excited about work? Really? Well, enthusiastic maybe works there. Don't you wish sometimes that living well had a set of easy steps to follow, or maybe a handbook for success? There are certainly many books out there that help, but wouldn't we love some easy tips that we can try right now? I've created for you 7 days of easy, free tips for living well. We're talking about sleep, food, movement, mindset, and a lot more. Even if you pick a few of these suggestions and give them a try, you will be starting down a path to amazing change over time. Make sure to go to www.bit.ly/OMG Teach Me podcast and sign up for your 7-day journey with me. Add that feeling of excitement or enthusiasm. And if you can't get enthused about this vision you're creating, about this decision, even a little bit, then maybe it's not quite the right decision yet. Or maybe your mental picture needs to be, shined up a little bit, made a little bit more sparkly. Maybe you can go for something a little bit better, because we're talking about decisions that are really powerful, that are what you want. So if it's not feeling good and you're not feeling enthusiastic about it, then maybe it's not really what you want. Maybe it's what somebody else wants. And that's a good little self-check right there. Now, here's the piece of this that often gets a lot of us stuck. We can make this vision, make this picture in our minds about the result. And the book Psycho-Cybernetics, if you like to read about this sort of thing, is really fascinating. I'll make sure to put that in our OMG Teach Me book recommendations list. Go to the show notes to get that. But if we can hold this mental picture, that's great. The thing that trips us up is, well, what if I don't know how to get there? I've got this great mental picture of where I'm going. I've made the decision. I'm going there, period. But I don't know how. That's pretty common, actually, when making decisions like this. It's pretty common that you don't know how. And that's okay. And this was the part that tripped me up when I was thinking about this and learning about this, because I'm very analytical. I want to know how. I wanted the step-by-step process. It's as if I were solving a math equation. I want to know what I would do next, and what I would do next, and what I would do next. I want the actual method, but that's a plan. That's not a vision or a goal or a powerful decision. That's a plan. If I have a step-by-step plan to do something, then that's great. I imagine I want to follow it. But making a powerful decision, typically we're talking about something that we don't exactly know how to do. Let's take starting a podcast. When I decided to start this podcast, I did not have a clue how to do it. I knew how to record a Zoom. I had no idea any of the other pieces at all. But I said, you know what? I'll figure it out. This is what I'm doing. And that's the way you need to look at these powerful decisions. I'm going to decide. I'm going to see it happening or having happened. And I know I have the self-confidence to know that I will figure it out. And maybe ask yourself this: am I willing to do what I need to do once I figure out what those things are that I need to do? Maybe I'll say that again. Am I willing to do what needs to be done once I know what needs to be done? If the answer to that is yes, then that is all you need. If the answer to that is no, maybe we revisit the decision. Maybe again, this is a checkpoint. Is this really what I want? Or am I influenced by what I should want? What someone thinks I should want? It's a good checkpoint, because otherwise we probably would say, yes, I'm willing to do what needs to be done as soon as I figure out what needs to be done. And it is okay that I don't know it yet, because we can figure it out, and these things will come once we make that gut, deep, powerful decision. Now, the next thing that kind of trips us up sometimes is the ability to hold on to this vision every day, no matter what. Because if you think about it, there will always be challenges in life. There will always be things that come up that trip us up, or we'll make a mistake, or we'll do something that doesn't turn out the way we thought. Those are circumstances. So we often start saying, well, I'd really like to decide to do this, or I decided to do this, but now I'm not so sure because fill in the blank. I didn't get the money I thought. I didn't find anyone to do whatever I wanted them to do. I didn't get a good solution to this. This happened. This came up. Those are circumstances. And sometimes, unfortunately, if we have a few failures or even just a few bumps in the road, we don't have the time we thought. Something bad happens and we get off track. We don't have the success we thought on some of the smaller steps that we're doing. Sometimes if those things happen to us a few times when working on this decision, our self-image gets a little damaged and we start to kind of lose sight of the fact that we actually can do what we decided. We lose a little bit of that self-confidence about it and we start to question whether we actually can do it. We know we decided that we were going to get the new job or head the committee or hit a certain point in our business or whatever it is, lose a certain weight, but it hasn't gone the way we thought. And this happened and that happened and the other thing happened. And so we start to question whether we actually can achieve it. We start to question our ability to achieve it because all this stuff keeps happening. This is what we're saying to ourselves. Well, I wouldn't have run out of money if this was meant to be, or I wouldn't have had this terrible thing happen that meant I didn't do the work I wanted to do all week if this was meant to be. Well, that's not necessarily true. Those are circumstances, and there is never going to be a period of life where there aren't circumstances that can trip us up, bumps in the road. One thing I always notice with people who are thinking about joining my social selling business, before you think I'm perfect, I said the same thing and still do it sometimes before I catch myself, but people often say, yeah, I'm interested. I think I do want to do that. I'll wait until insert a time of year, summer, fall, winter, spring, whatever, after the holidays, whatever, because then I'll have time or then I'll be less busy. And no matter what you're talking about in life, if you catch yourself saying, I'll do it in next month, next week, next year, that season, this season, because it will be easier, less busy, I'll have this, I'll have that, that's probably not true. There will always be circumstances. There will always be bumps in the road. And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to help us to kind of plan for that. We can still make a decision right now with what we know and hold that vision. The challenge or the real work, as my mentor Karen Mullen says, is to hold that vision on the days when the circumstances look really bleak and all the stuff is happening. I mean, I kind of might feel silly, wouldn't you, to imagine this vision of this amazing new whatever I decided on when everything seems to be blocking me. All the doors seem to be closing. It doesn't matter. This is the real work. Hold that vision. That's the power because it affects our energy and that affects how we show up in the world and that all those actions we take as we show up that way in the world affect our results. It matters. Another piece of advice, once we make these powerful decisions, even if we don't know how it's going to happen, even if we don't know how it's going to be done, what we're going to do, how to do it, don't get involved in discussions of why it can't be done. Don't get involved in discussions complaining about the things that are going wrong. Don't get involved worrying about it can't be done, what's going wrong, something might go wrong. All of that is giving energy to what we don't want. And everything is energy. Go back and listen to episode 1 if you want more about that. When we're sending this feeling, this energy towards something we don't want, we lose all the creativity to figure out the actions that will give us the things we do want. And we keep thinking of the things we don't want. It just stops the progress, basically. Major roadblock. So pull yourselves out of those discussions, out of those thoughts, out of those complaints as best you can. And please know that nobody's perfect at this. If you fall into it, I fall into it. We all fall into it. I'm a mindset coach, for heaven's sakes. I fall into it. Pull yourself out. Recognize it. As Faith Hoskins told us in episode 19, recognize it. Thank your brain for trying to keep you safe. And then let's switch to something different that we want to think about. Let's go back to holding that vision with some enthusiasm. That's the perfect switch. So what happens to people in life that make decisions like this? What do they look like? Well, they follow their inner guide. You might say their intuition. And we're going to have a whole episode on intuition because it's really fascinating. They're not swayed by the opinions of others. They're not swayed by these circumstances that happen. They keep going. And you've probably heard people say, don't compare yourself to other people. Don't compare your real life to their highlight reel when we're talking about social media. Here you go. Not being swayed by the opinions or the actions or the appearance of others. Following your inner decision-making intuition. They do work that they feel is really worthwhile and important. Because when we make decisions like this, we're making a decision to do something that really matters to us, like personally us, not someone else where we thought we should make that decision. So we're probably doing something that we we really believe is important or worthwhile or makes a difference in the world. And that is powerful stuff. And they find their work to be a pleasure. And that goes right back to the first one. If you believe you're doing something that's important, and it doesn't have to be feeding the world or changing the poverty situation in the world, it could be making an experience or an event better in your local area. It could be making your own life better. It doesn't matter, but it's important and it's worthwhile, and you're going to want to work on it because you have that enthusiasm and you feel it's important. You find it a pleasure. Thomas Edison said, this is one of my favorite quotes, if we did all the things we are capable of doing, we would literally astound ourselves. Now, I say literally way too often, so I kind of like it for that too, but imagine if we did all the things we're capable of doing, we would literally astound ourselves. And Thomas Carlyle said, go as far as you can see. When you get there, you will see how you can go further. And I love that as such a powerful concept. So let me just add a quick mention here of SMART goals, because if you have worked in an office environment and maybe school too, maybe, you know what SMART goals are. And that's an acronym that means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So we're talking about decision making today, but we're also kind of talking about goals because a lot of times the decisions I'm making right now with what I know are about a goal, right? Now, SMART goals are often relevant for our business or our job or our committee work. If you have an event coming up or you have a group of people that need to do something together by a certain date, then this is a good idea. You need a SMART goal. It needs to be measurable and time-bound and relevant and achievable. But I'm going to add a but. But if you're thinking about your achievements in life, something you want to learn or try or do, or a promotion you want to earn, or something you want to achieve, something big, something important, something powerful for you, a SMART goal is probably not the way to do it. I said that. Decide that you're going to do it. Hold the vision of having achieved it. Attach excitement or enthusiasm to that vision, and you will find ideas and actions to take towards that end result. It might not feel achievable or measurable or even time-bound at first, and that's okay. If you have truly decided, gut deep, I am doing this, I see it done, and I am going to see it done in my head every day, no matter what, then the rest is going to fall into place. And I can't tell you how, and I can't tell you when, but this works, and it works over and over and over again, and it feels powerful. So I would love your feedback on this. And let me just add, before we wrap up this episode about powerful decision making, that I am adding this week to the Mood Lift playlist on Spotify and Amazon Music, the song Family Affair by Mary J. Blige. And if you are younger than me and are not familiar, this is a dance song. It is really peppy, and there's a few lines in there about celebrating no more drama in our lives that I think is a pretty mood-lifting idea as well. So there we go. Powerful decisions. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. OMG, I would be so honored if you would take a moment, leave a rating, leave a review, or take a screenshot and share on your social media. Let's get this message out further into the world. Now it's time to head down to the show notes to see the resources I mentioned. We may not have learned this before, but it sure is powerful now.